My peoples, y'all already know what it is, man. We here. We in the building. Let's get it, my peoples. You know, we gonna do what we do, man. We gonna talk boxing. That's what we do, right? We got an interesting show for you tonight, my peoples. That's all I gotta tell you. About to get real up in here. So, just want to say thank you guys for tuning in, for watching Box Center the show. I appreciate y'all, man, for real. Don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. All that good stuff, man. Join the Box Center family. And let's go on this ride, my peoples. For real. We is on the come up. So you already know what it is, man. We got a good show for you guys tonight, my peoples. Got a good show for you tonight. We talking boxing. Yeah. Yo, man, listen. Let's get started. Welcome to Box Center. I'm your host, Jay Smith. And you already know what it is, man. I'm your connections. I'm your plug. My peoples, don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And look, man, we gonna get it popping quick. I'm not even playing no games with y'all today. We gonna get it popping right away. The first segment, the first Box Center, the show segment for today is The Streets is Talking. That's the first. Yo, what's good, my boy? That's the first segment for tonight. The streets are talking. What are the fights that the people are talking about in social media, in Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube? What are the fights that you want to see? I tell you. I'm going to start off first off with Shakur Stevenson versus Tank Davis. Y'all know y'all want to see that fight. Be honest. And you know that everybody wants to see that fight because as soon as people hear those two names, they got a prediction lined up. Or Tank is going to knock him out. Or Shakur is going to outbox him. People want that fight. The streets is talking. Everybody has an opinion about how they think Shakur Stevenson versus Tank Davis would play out. Go ahead, my peoples. Feel free to tell me in the comment section. How do you think Shakur versus Tank ends up? Does that fight go the distance? Is somebody getting slept? We have to see that fight. You have to see it. We got to have it. So when it comes to the streets is talking, Shakur versus Tank, it's a fight that needs to be brought up. Shout out to my boy Ken Grayson, man. Appreciate you hopping on, my boy. You already know what it is, man. We in the building. And we talking about, the streets is talking. This is the first segment of today's show. The streets is talking. And what is the first fight that the streets, want to see? Tank Davis versus Shakur Stevenson. We want to see that fight. Okay, we already know that Tank is not going to fight Shakur next. Shakur got an injury right now, and he's already going to come back versus William Zepeda early next year. Tank is working on trying to get a fight for November this year, maybe December. But the point is, should they both beat their next opponent, why not get Shakur versus Tank in the middle of 2025? So yes, we're almost a year away, but we gotta have that fight and we gotta start talking about it. We gotta keep buzzing. We gotta let the world know that this is a fight that we gotta have. Now, my peoples, y'all tell me, because the streets is talking, it's about what boxing fans want. What fights do you want to see? We the streets, my people, is us. What fights do we want to see materialize? I got another one for you. that we want to see. Canelo Alvarez versus David Benavidez. The people want to see that. Been wanting to see that for how many years at this point? 4, 5 years maybe? So Canelo versus the Mexican Monster is a fight that we want. It's a fight that, for whatever reason, hasn't happened. Now, I'll tell you what. I'm going to be real with you. I understand why Canelo don't want to make that fight. When I look at the size difference between Canelo and the Mexican Monster, you're talking about a guy that's 5'7" versus a guy that's 6'2". And the difference in reach is astronomical. So therefore, the Mexican Monster looks like a giant in front of Canelo. Like, if you put a guy, think about this. David Benavidez is 7 inches taller than Canelo Alvarez. So I want you to think about your own height, how tall you are, right? And think about somebody who is 7 inches taller than you. Think about that. Somebody who's 7 inches taller than you, it's not even easy to punch them in the face unless you get really, really, really close to them. And David Benavidez is a guy that fights tall. David Benavidez versus Canelo Alvarez is a problem for Canelo because Benavidez is a big dude and Canelo is not. He's the opposite. 5'7", he's stocky, he's strong, but he's not a big guy. So when you put Canelo Alvarez versus David Benavidez, the Mexican Monster is going to look like a Mexican giant in front of him. Like I said, my people, just consider someone who is 7 inches taller than you. Imagine that. You probably know somebody who has that height, when compared to you. That difference. And it's a lot, it's a lot. Saludo, Ana. Gracias por pasar por aquí y saludar. So, it's a fight, the streets been talking about David Benavidez versus Canelo Alvarez. Are we going to get it? I don't know. The odds are against it simply because Canelo has been avoiding that fight for years. Is he going to take it at the tail end of his career and take a brutal beating from Benavidez? I don't know. I don't know, my peoples. That's what I can tell you. I mean, look, I understand that Ken Grayson dudes being taller than you and you feel like you could beat them up. But all I'm saying is, because you got to remember, if you feel like you could beat them up, that's not the same as two boxers. You know that David Benavidez is number one, a volume puncher. Number two, a very aggressive fighter. So imagine Canelo Alvarez trying to get on the inside on Benavidez when this guy is letting his hands fly. 4-5 punches from all types of angles. So, Canelo would eat some serious leather trying to get in there. And that's why, the streets have been talking about that fight. Is it going to happen? The odds are against it based on the fact that Canelo just hasn't shown that he want to make that fight. But let's see. Let's see how it all plays out. Right now, Canelo Alvarez just, finished beating Edgar Berlanga. Let's see. I heard somewhere, or I read somewhere, or I saw a video where supposedly David Benavidez is offering David Morrell a fight. David Morrell is a guy who's been wanting to fight Benavidez. He wants to fight Canelo. He's all about that smoke. He is all about that action. So I'd love to see that fight. So there you have it, my peoples. The streets is talking. Tank Davis versus Shakur Stevenson. We want it. We gotta have it. Hopefully we can get that for 2025. And then you have David Benavidez, Canelo Alvarez. You know, people been asking for that fight for years. Is it gonna happen? We have to wait and see. I gave you my take. You know, the odds to me are against it, but we shall see, my peoples. We shall see. Let's move on to the next segment, my peoples. The next segment for tonight's show is called Duck, Duck, Goose. What is Duck, Duck, Goose about? Simple. It's about a fighter. Y'all could throw names out there, but it's about a fighter who could have made a fight, but didn't. He ducked. Canelo, Goose. Yo, so for Duck Goose, the first nomination comes from Canelo Alvarez. I'm guessing that's from not fighting David Benavidez all these years. You know, I gave a reason as to why I think he should not fight David Benavidez, but when it comes to that opponent, I think Canelo Alvarez is a worthy recipient of the Duck Duck Goose Award. So go ahead and hand them that right there. He didn't fight a lot of people all these years. You know, listen, Canelo has, I gotta tell you, one of the best resumes in boxing. But, you know, the last few years, I understand what you're saying because there's some fights that we wanted, that we want to see. Some people we want him to fight and he hasn't. So I get that when it comes to the last few years. I agree with that. And that's why I say when it comes to David Benavidez, Duck, Duck, Goose. Moving on to the next one. Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson. Remember Shakur was his mandatory in the 135 division? Remember he pushed it and forced the card so that Devin was mandated to fight him? Devin made an offer. If I recall, it was 25%. Shakur said nah. And Devin abruptly left the division. Now, a lot of people never wanted to admit that Devin ducked Shakur. But let's look at the circumstances. Shakur is mandatory. The fight was mandated. Devin made a 25% offer. Shakur said no. What would have been the natural process here? Well, simple. They go to purse bid. Decide how the purse is going to be split, and make the fight. Well, guess what? Right before they were set to go to purse bid, Devin announced that he was leaving the division. Keep in mind, my peoples, that when you go to purse bid, the champion regularly, I'm talking about on average, gets between 80 and 70%. That's how the purse bids play out. Champions get 80, 70, more or less around there. In other words, what I'm trying to explain to you, my peoples, is that Devin Haney could have went to purse bid and got right around the same amount of money that he would have got based on that 25% offer that he sent Shakur. He would have got the same amount of money, more or less. So why did he choose not to go to purse bid? Why not? He literally announced that he was leaving the division days away from the purse bid. Now, I want to do a quick rewind and remind y'all that Devin Haney said that he was planning on keeping all 4 of his belts. He was in a conversation where they asked him, because of the sanctioning fees, if he was just going to vacate all the titles when he was undisputed. You can look it up. He said, no, I'm keeping all my belts. I'm staying undisputed. So in other words, Devin Haney stayed undisputed at the 135 division until Shakur Stevenson became his mandatory and he was mandated to fight him. Shortly after that, he left the division and left all of the titles behind. So Devin Haney is definitely a well-deserved recipient of the Duck Duck Goose Award. There you have it. You want to make an argument against that? You can. But at the end of the day, we could have gotten Devin Haney versus Shakur Stevenson 2 years ago. We could have got it. And Devin chose to leave the division right when he was mandated to fight Shakur. So a lot of people make the argument, no, but he made an offer. It's Shakur's fault for not taking it. Yo, that wasn't a real offer, man. Y'all got to stop the cap. That wasn't a real offer. And you know that it wasn't a real offer when he made it and immediately left the division. Like, you know what a real offer is? When you sit down and negotiate. When you sit down and talk. But when you send the offer and leave the division right away, that wasn't no real offer. Come on now. Stop playing. So yes, duck, duck, goose. Only way to describe it. So there you have it, my peoples. Let's move on to the next segment. Yo, my peoples, don't be cheap with that like button. Hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed, join the Box Hunter family. We on the come up. Oh, by the way, my peoples, let me put y'all on. I got a new project coming up. I can't give you the details right now, but it's something very special, something very interesting coming up. And I'm sure y'all gonna love it. Just like y'all follow this and you understand what's going on now here. This show, this other thing that I got coming up for y'all, y'all gonna love it. So stay tuned, man. Something special coming up. So let's move on to the final segment of today's show. The final segment is, where are they now? Where are they now? Fighters who were, doing their thing and out there, but where they at right now? So I'm going to get started. Watch this. With Keith Thurman and Errol Spence. Y'all got to remember that there was a point where Keith Thurman was one of the hottest welterweights in the game. Beat Danny Garcia. He's the first one to hand Danny Garcia an L. That was a unification fight. They were both champions, both undefeated. That was a great win for him. But where's Keith Thurman now? If y'all remember, at one point, it was even announced that he was going to fight Tim Tszyu. Which, that was crazy, because Keith has been inactive for so long. How you going to come back versus Timmy? He would have got killed. So I'm glad that fight didn't happen. But where's Keith Thurman? And Errol Spence, where is he? You got to remember, at this point, he hasn't fought in over a year. And it's been said that Errol is going to fight Sebastian Fundora at the end of the year, possibly November or December. That fight was delayed because first they said it was going to happen, months before that. And then they pushed the date back. But there hasn't been an official announcement. Like you don't know if that fight is actually going to happen. However, Errol Spence has deactivated his Instagram account. So where is he? Is he training? Is he preparing for Fundora? Or is he preparing for whatever may come? Because remember, Sebastian Fundora was mandated to fight Terrence Bud Crawford. So he's going to have two options. Number one, Fundora can defend his title versus Bud Crawford, and that's going to leave Spence without an opponent for the end of the year. Or he can vacate that strap and still fight Errol. But the point is that there's a certain level of uncertainty because we don't know if Errol is going to have an opponent based on the fact that Fundora has not announced what he's going to do next. He still has that title. He has not vacated. Is he going to defend it? We shall see. We shall see. We have to keep in mind that Fundora has 2 belts and Terrence Crawford has 1. If they fight, the winner of that fight will have 3 of the major titles in the division. That person will be 1 fight away from becoming undisputed in the 154 division. So Terrence Bud Crawford versus Sebastian Fundora is actually a pretty important fight. It's more important than Errol versus Fundora, to be honest, because Errol doesn't have a title. He's getting a title shot. Plus, he would be getting a title shot coming off of inactivity. I mean, to be honest, I want to see Errol Spence versus Fundora. If that fight is going to happen, if it happens, I'm all in. I want that fight. Because I want to see how Errol Spence is going to bounce back after, the type of beating that he took from Terrence Bud Crawford. How is he going to be able to bounce back from that? We're talking about he took a nasty beating. He's been inactive for a long time. How can he bounce back? Can he bounce back? Versus, because that's the thing. And Errol has said this before. He doesn't do tune-ups. He don't like doing tune-ups. He said that. Cool. He's coming back versus a champion. And if you know boxing, you understand that Sebastian Fundora is the truth. It's a reason why they call him the Tower Inferno. And he's going to have major height and reach advantages over Errol Spence if that fight happens. Major. And we saw him use that height and reach advantage to beat Tim Tszyu in his last fight. He's going to try to use it versus Errol. Is he going to be successful? We're going to find out. But this is a very tough and a very dangerous fight for Errol Spence to come back to. Very dangerous. I got to give him his credit. I got to give him his props. Errol's a warrior. He's about that smoke. He's about that real stuff. Errol Spence is a throwback fighter. He's that one of them dudes that he's going to fight the top guys consistently. So, now if Fundora decides to defend his titles versus Terrence Crawford, if that happens, who does Errol fight? How about Virgil Ortiz? Virgil Ortiz made his debut in the 154 division. He only has 1 fight on there, and he had been inactive for quite some time. So that's a fight Errol could make. And in fact, Virgil Ortiz expressed interest in wanting to fight the winner of Arrow versus Fundora. He said he wanted that fight. So we got to see how that's going to play out. Are we going to get Spence versus Fundora? I don't know. I'm going to tell you guys why I'm iffy about that fight. If you recall, Errol Spence and Terence Crawford had a rematch clause, right? For whatever reason, they couldn't make that fight. But we already know that Crawford, being the person who had the power to make the decision, decided that the rematch would be at welterweight. And Errol Spence decided that he cannot make that weight class, that weight. And that was enough, I guess, for the fight to fall through. But the fight didn't just fall through. That rematch clause froze Terence Crawford for a year, pretty much. Because he couldn't fight anybody else as long as he was tied to that rematch clause. And first they had a date for the rematch. Then they pushed the date to another one. And then eventually Errol said, okay, no, we're not going to do this. But before saying we're not going to do this, he froze Crawford out for almost a year. Because from the beginning, he told them the rematch is at 147. Yet, even though Errol knew that he wasn't going to fight at 147, he stuck around and froze Crawford behind that rematch clause. So all I'm saying is that Spence delayed, and ended up not fighting but in that rematch as we expected. So now there's already been one delay versus Fundora where they said it was going to be, I can't remember because that was a while back, but they said that they were going to fight like in September or something like that. And then they said, no, it's going to be in like December. What I hear or what I heard is that Errol wasn't in shape or was not going to be ready for that to be fight ready for that date, and they needed more time. And that's why they pushed it back. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I heard. That's what I heard. So, is he going to be ready for this upcoming date? I want to see. Errol Spence doesn't have his Instagram active right now, so you can't really follow him. You don't know if he's training, if he's getting ready for a fight, or if he's partying and overweight. I don't know. But we shall see. We shall see. Time will tell. It always does. My peoples, check me out. I want to give all of you a shout out for hopping on with me. You know what I'm saying? We family. Y'all already know what this is. Box Center, your favorite boxers, favorite boxing show. Yo, check it, man. Don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Yo, I really appreciate you coming in here and hanging out with me. And stay tuned, yo. I got something special coming up, something real special. I'm cooking. I promise you, yo, I'm cooking. The chef is cooking and got something special for y'all. Once again, yo, shout out to everybody who tune in, who always show me love, who spend a little bit of time with me. Again, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Mondays through Fridays. Box Under the show, my people. This is something different. This not what the other people giving y'all. This is Jay Smith right here. I'm your connections. I'm your plug. You already know what it is, man. Box Center. I'm signing out, my peoples. I appreciate y'all. Peace.